The most dangerous woman doesn't hit you. She makes you believe everything is your fault. She's beautiful, charming, intelligent. She listens like she really cares. She makes you feel understood in a way nobody else ever has. Your friends think you hit the jackpot. Your family loves her. You start to believe you finally found the one. But then something shifts. Months later, you're sitting in your car, staring at your own front door, and you don't even want to walk inside. You feel drained, confused, guilty for things you don't even remember doing. You're constantly second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're the problem. Deep down, you know something's wrong, but you can't explain it. This is the trap too many men fall into. It doesn't start with screaming or cheating or obvious abuse. It starts with kindness, with empathy, with vulnerability that feels real. But slowly, it twists into control, projection, gaslighting, and chaos. By the time you realize what's happening, you've already been rewired to doubt your own mind. The truth is, not all danger looks dangerous at first. Some of the most destructive women you'll ever meet are the ones who seem like they need saving. They don't destroy you with fists. They destroy you with subtle psychological manipulation. And that's exactly what we're going to break down in this video. If you've ever felt trapped in a relationship that made you question your sanity, stay locked in until the end, because what you're about to learn could save you years of pain. The first thing you need to understand is this: truly dangerous women don't announce themselves. They don't show up waving red flags or acting unstable. It's the opposite. They slip into your life looking like everything you've been waiting for. She's attentive. She's empathetic. She's vulnerable in just the right ways, and that makes you want to step in as the man who protects her. That's how the hook works. You don't see danger. You see someone who needs your strength. But underneath that appearance, a quiet exchange begins. Little by little, you start carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. She shares her fears, her traumas, her painful stories. At first, it feels like intimacy. You feel honored that she trusts you. You feel proud to be the one she leans on. But here's the reality. She's not opening up to connect. She's unloading. Every confession is a download. Every download shifts a piece of her chaos onto your shoulders. Before long, you're not just supporting her, you're absorbing her. Her anxiety becomes yours. Her instability becomes your daily life. The scariest part? It doesn't feel toxic at first. It feels like love. You believe you're helping her heal, but in truth, you've become her emotional container. She feels lighter while you get heavier. And by the time you realize it, you're no longer living your life. You're trapped inside her storm. Once you've taken on her emotional weight, the rules change. You're no longer just carrying her pain. You're living inside her distorted reality. And her sharpest weapon is projection. That's when she takes the parts of herself she can't face and throws them onto you. Here's how it plays out. She calls you selfish, while she's the one acting out of self-interest. She accuses you of being emotionally unavailable, when she's the one building walls. She claims you're controlling, when in truth, she's the one pulling the strings. The accusations don't fit your reality, but they cut deep because they come from someone you love. So you defend yourself. You explain. You fight to prove her wrong. And with every defense, you fall deeper into her frame. Soon, every conversation becomes a trial about who you are, not what actually happened. You start to wonder, maybe I am selfish. Maybe I am the problem. And slowly, her version of you replaces your own. That's why projection is so dangerous. It doesn't just attack your actions, it erodes your identity. The trap is that the harder you resist, the more guilty you look. Get frustrated, and suddenly you have anger issues. Too tired to argue, and now you're emotionally distant. No matter what you do, it gets twisted back onto you. This is where many men lose themselves. You came in wanting to love and protect, but instead, you end up defending yourself against accusations that were never yours to begin with. That's the power of projection. It rewires who you believe you are. After projection has worn you down, another mask appears. The victim. On the surface, she looks fragile, broken, desperate for protection. She shares stories of past trauma, of people who hurt her, of struggles she faced alone. You feel her pain. You want to be the man who finally treats her right. Your instinct is to protect, to comfort, to fix. That's exactly why it works. Your protective nature becomes the trap. The moment you set a boundary, she calls it abandonment. The moment you ask for accountability, she says you're cruel. Every criticism becomes persecution. Every request for balance becomes proof you're the oppressor. Slowly, the roles flip without you noticing. At first, she leans on you like she's weak. But over time, weakness turns into power. The victim becomes the prosecutor. The wounded turns into the warrior. The helpless becomes the handler. And suddenly, the woman you thought you were saving is the one accusing you, making you believe you're the problem. That's what leaves so many men confused. Your mind says, if she's hurting, I must be at fault. But that's the lie. Her pain may be real, but she's weaponized it. Instead of healing, she uses it to dodge responsibility. Instead of growing, she uses it to control. This isn't true vulnerability. It isn't intimacy. It's strategy. And unless you recognize the mask, you'll spend years proving you're not the villain in a story that was never yours. Once the victim mask has played its part, another pattern often shows up: the emotional parasite. At first, she presents herself as someone who just needs love, patience, and a chance to heal. She says she could be amazing if only she could fix her past wounds, chase her dreams, or overcome her struggles. To you, that sounds like a mission worth taking on. You imagine being the man who finally gives her the stability she never had. That thought is powerful. You pour in your time, your energy, your heart. You believe you can help her transform. But here's the truth. She has no real plan to change. Because if she healed, the dynamic she depends on would collapse. Her survival relies on your constant giving. And the more you give, the weaker you become. It's a cruel cycle. Every time you rescue her, you reinforce her dependence. Every time you fix her problems, you keep her dysfunction alive. You think you're helping, but in reality, you're just feeding the parasite, and a parasite never gets full. Her addiction isn't to you, it's to being taken care of. The hardest part is how easily this looks like love. You feel needed, even noble. But what's really happening is that you're being drained. Your energy fades, your identity erodes, and she feels lighter because she's unloading everything onto you. That's not a relationship. It's a parasitic bond. And unless you recognize it, you'll keep sacrificing yourself for someone who never planned to stand on her own. If the emotional parasite drains you from the inside, the mask controller locks you in a different kind of cage. On the surface, she looks flawless. To the world, she's sweet, generous, admired. Friends say you're lucky. Family calls her a blessing. From the outside, it looks perfect. But behind closed doors, the mask comes off, and what you see is completely different. In private, she's critical, manipulative, and controlling. She tears you down with constant judgment, makes you doubt your every move, and shifts the rules whenever it suits her. And here's the trick. Nobody else ever sees it. Her public image is spotless. She uses it as both shield and weapon. If you try to speak up, people look at you like you've lost it. Her? No way. She's wonderful. And just like that, your truth feels invisible. This dual life creates deep confusion. You start to wonder if maybe you are the problem. Everyone else sees her as kind. So maybe you're just overreacting. That's exactly what she wants. The more you doubt yourself, the easier it is for her to stay in control. The mask controller relies on your silence. She expects you to smile in photos, play the part at family events, and keep the illusion alive. Break the script, and you become the villain in her story. That's why this trap is so hard to escape. To the world, you're in a dream. But in reality, you're stuck in a nightmare no one else can see. If the mask controller traps you in silence, the chaos generator keeps you in motion. With her, peace doesn't exist. Just when things seem calm, another storm hits. She thrives on drama because without it, she feels empty. Her inner chaos demands an outlet, and you become the target. At first, it looks like coincidence. Small arguments turn into all-night battles. Minor issues explode into emergencies. A simple disagreement escalates into war. She creates problems out of thin air because the drama serves her. It keeps your focus on her. It keeps you too busy putting out fires to notice the bigger pattern underneath. This constant turbulence creates the illusion of passion. She mistakes chaos for love, and you start to confuse adrenaline with connection. The highs feel like reconnection, the lows like devastation. Soon, you're trapped on a roller coaster you never chose to ride. And the worst part, you think if you just fix the next problem, things will finally settle, but they never do. Living with a chaos generator is exhausting. Your nervous system never rests. You brace for the next explosion, the next meltdown, the next dramatic twist. Over time, you stop thinking clearly. You stop dreaming. You stop being yourself. Survival becomes your only goal. And in survival mode, she stays in control. Real love isn't chaos. Real love brings peace, not panic. Unless you recognize the game, you'll keep confusing her storm for intimacy, and that's how she keeps you trapped. If the chaos generator keeps you spinning with storms, the boundary violator breaks you down in a quieter way by slowly erasing your personal space. With her, love isn't respect. Love is access. She convinces you that if you really care, you won't need privacy. You won't need independence. You won't need limits. At first, it feels harmless. She shows up without asking. She checks your phone. She makes plans for you both without considering your opinion. Each time, she frames it as love, not intrusion. And because you care, you let it slide. But those small cracks spread fast. When you try to set limits, she reacts with anger or guilt. Ask for alone time, and suddenly you're rejecting her. Want privacy? She calls it secrecy. Ask for respect, and she says you're cold and distant. Slowly, the meaning of boundaries disappears until it feels like you don't have any left at all. Over time, you stop resisting. It's easier to give in than to deal with her reactions. You stop seeing friends she doesn't approve of. You drop hobbies that take your attention away. You change your choices to avoid upsetting her. Piece by piece, your life stops belonging to you. This isn't compromise, it's erosion. Real love protects your individuality. Real love honors your limits. What she calls closeness, is actually control. And unless you see it clearly, you'll keep surrendering yourself, one boundary at a time. If the boundary violator chips away at your independence, the gaslighter attacks something even deeper, your reality. With her, truth bends, facts shift, and slowly you start to question whether you can even trust your own mind. It never starts big. At first, it's small denials. You remember her saying something cruel. She swears it never happened. You recall her doing something hurtful. She insists your memory is wrong. You notice a pattern. She laughs and says you're imagining things. Each time, you doubt yourself just a little more. Maybe you misheard. Maybe you're overreacting. Maybe it really is you. But those doubts pile up. Over time, you stop trusting your memory. You stop trusting your judgment. And when her version of events collides with yours, you give in. Not because you believe her, but because you no longer believe yourself. The gaslighter sharpens control with selective memory. She recalls every one of your mistakes in detail while forgetting her own. She rewrites history, so you're always the guilty one, and she's always the victim. The more you accept it, the more you drift from your own truth. The most dangerous part is how she frames it. She plays the calm, patient partner who's just helping you see clearly. You might even thank her for putting up with your supposed flaws, never realizing she's stealing your most basic anchor, your reality. That's gaslighting. It doesn't just confuse you, it makes you dependent on her story until you no longer need her to control you, because you've started controlling yourself. If gaslighting steals your reality, the emotional terrorist takes aim at your heart. With her, the relationship is never safe. It's not love. It's a hostage situation. Every day feels like it could explode into threats, ultimatums, or emotional blackmail. She doesn't need physical violence to control you. Her weapon is fear. Fear of what she'll do if you don't give in. Sometimes the threats are blunt. She'll say she'll leave if you don't comply. She'll threaten to hurt herself if you set a boundary. She'll hint that she'll ruin your name if you walk away. Other times, the threats are quieter, but just as sharp. She withholds affection. She stages dramatic scenes. She creates constant crises until you learn the rule. Do what she wants or pay the price. The conditioning happens fast. At first, you argue back. You try to hold your ground. But soon, you notice every move toward independence triggers chaos. Eventually, you stop resisting. You silence yourself. You adjust your choices, not because you agree with her, but because you're scared of the fallout. That fear becomes the leash she pulls to keep control. The cruelest twist is how she uses your loyalty against you. You don't want to abandon her. You don't want to cause her pain. But she convinces you her emotions are your responsibility, and every choice you make is judged as either devotion or betrayal. This isn't love. Love doesn't hold you hostage. Love doesn't punish you with fear. What you're living through is emotional terrorism, and its goal is control, not connection. If the emotional terrorist controls you through fear, the identity thief takes a quieter path. She rewrites who you are. At first, it feels like compromise, like the kind of adjustments people make in any relationship. But over time, you notice the changes aren't balanced. They're one-sided. They're about her shaping you into someone who exists only to fit her needs. It begins subtly. She doesn't like certain friends, so you stop seeing them. She criticizes your hobbies, so you let them go. She stirs up drama whenever your attention shifts away, until it feels easier to drop the things you love than deal with the conflict. Slowly, your world shrinks, and she calls it love. She calls it growth. But what's really happening is erasure. The identity thief knows how to reward and punish. When you act the way she wants, she showers you with affection and approval. When you act as yourself, she withdraws, criticizes, or creates friction. Over time, you adapt. Not because you want to change, but because avoiding punishment feels safer. The tragedy is that it doesn't feel forced. It feels gradual, even natural. You tell yourself you're evolving, that sacrifice is part of love. But one day, you look in the mirror and realize the man you used to be is gone. Your passions, your friendships, your individuality, all replaced by the role she scripted for you. This isn't growth. This isn't love. It's identity theft. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before she rewrote you. If the identity thief erases who you are, the recovery prevention agent makes sure you never get the chance to rebuild. This woman fears your growth because your healing means her control slips away. So she does everything possible to keep you stuck, dependent, insecure, and easy to manage. She rarely says it outright. Instead, she masks it as concern. Go to therapy? She calls it selfish. Start working out, reading, or chasing goals. She insists you're changing too much, that you don't love her like you used to. What should be celebrated gets twisted into betrayal. If guilt doesn't stop you, chaos will. The moment you plan a therapy session, she has a meltdown that demands your full attention. When you're set to see friends, she stirs up a crisis to keep you home. It happens so often it becomes a pattern. And those emergencies aren't bad luck. They're sabotage. The cruelest part is how she disguises it as support. She might say she's fine with therapy, then push for the therapist who sides with her. She claims to respect your boundaries, then crosses them again and again. She pretends she wants change, while ensuring nothing ever changes. This sabotage cuts deep because it targets your fight to get better. And the more hopeless you feel, the tighter her grip becomes. A real partner celebrates your growth. The recovery prevention agent destroys it, because the healthier you get, the less she can control. By the time you've endured identity theft and recovery sabotage, the damage is clear. But the truth is, most men miss the danger long before it gets that far. The signs were there in the beginning. They just didn't look like red flags. They looked like passion. They looked like connection. That's why so many guys walk right into the trap. One of the biggest signs is speed. Healthy love takes time. It grows layer by layer. But with a dangerous woman, things move too fast. She pushes for deep talks right away, wants commitment before you've really seen her, and starts talking about forever when you've barely started. It feels exciting, but that rush isn't love. It's urgency. And urgency always hides something. Another sign is isolation. She won't demand you cut people off. Instead, she makes it costly to stay connected. When you see friends, she sulks. When you visit family, she creates drama. When you spend time on hobbies, she picks a fight. Slowly, you give up the people and passions that matter until she's the only one left. The third sign is reality negotiation. It doesn't start with obvious gaslighting. It starts small, gentle corrections, subtle contradictions, little nudges that make you question your own memory. She always offers an interpretation that benefits her. And once you start second-guessing yourself, she can bend reality any way she wants. These aren't quirks. They're warnings. Ignore them, and what feels like love today will rewrite your life tomorrow. Once the early signs are ignored, something deeper starts to take root. It's not just the drama or the guilt trips anymore. It's the way her emotions seep into you until you can't tell where she ends and you begin. Psychologists call it emotional contagion. I call it psychological colonization because that's exactly how it feels. At first, it looks like empathy. If she's sad, you comfort her. If she's anxious, you calm her. If she's angry, you adjust your tone to avoid setting her off. It feels like connection, but in reality, you're being trained to regulate her emotions instead of your own. Over time, you stop noticing how you feel at all. You wake up scanning her moods. Is she upset today? What do I need to do to keep things stable? Her chaos becomes your baseline. Your nervous system syncs with hers until you're constantly managing her storm while losing yourself in the process. The longer this continues, the more her voice becomes your voice. You start describing events the way she would. You see yourself through her eyes. Her worldview replaces your own. And soon, you're not just living with her, you're living as the version of yourself she created. That's why leaving feels impossible. You're not just walking away from her, you're walking away from the identity she's colonized inside you. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before her storm took over your life. Once her emotions have colonized your mind, the connection no longer feels normal. It feels unbreakable, almost addictive. But this isn't love. It's trauma bonding. It's not built on trust or growth. It's built on a cycle of stress and relief that convinces you chaos equals connection. It usually starts with conflict. She stirs up drama, throws accusations, or suddenly turns cold. The pressure rises until you feel like you're walking on eggshells. Then, just when you're ready to break, she softens. She forgives. She shows affection again. That relief washes over you, and instead of asking why the fight even happened, you cling to the comfort. The cycle repeats until the highs and lows become your normal. And here's the trap. Your brain starts craving the highs, even though they only come after the lows. That's the same psychological hook that keeps gamblers glued to slot machines. You keep giving more, hoping for the next reward. The intensity of it all makes the bond stronger. The fights, the makeups, the swings. It feels powerful. It feels passionate. You tell yourself that something this intense must be real. But it's not. That rush isn't love. It's manipulation. Over time, the bond convinces you that leaving would tear you apart. You fear losing her, even though she's the one destroying you. That's the cruelest part. Your attachment feels deepest at the exact moment it should be breaking. Real love doesn't trap you in chaos. Real love brings calm, stability, and growth. And until you see that difference, the trauma bond will keep pulling you back, making you confuse destruction for devotion. If trauma bonding chains you to her through pain and relief, social proof is the weapon she uses to trap you in plain sight. This is when she controls how others see her, and by extension, how they see you. To the outside world, she builds an image that is spotless. She's kind, supportive, maybe even inspiring. People look at her and say, "You're lucky to have her." And when everyone else buys the mask, you start to question your own reality even more. She carefully curates her circle. Friends, co-workers, even family are chosen or influenced to reinforce her story. When she plays the victim, they rally around her. When you try to share your side, you're painted as cold, selfish, or unstable. It's not just her against you anymore. It's her plus an army of supporters who all think you're the problem. Social media takes it to another level. She posts the perfect photos, the loving captions, the public displays of affection. Strangers believe your relationship is solid. Friends tell you they admire what you have. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, you're living a completely different reality. And that gap between perception and truth isolates you. It makes you feel like there's nowhere to turn because no one would believe you if you told them. This is how social proof becomes her shield. It protects her reputation while destroying yours. It traps you not only in her story, but in everyone else's belief in that story. And as long as the world thinks she's the saint, you're left feeling like the sinner. If social proof locks you in socially, financial entanglement traps you in the most practical way possible, through your wallet. Money may not buy love, but it can buy control. And once she ties her financial well-being to yours, leaving becomes more complicated than just walking out the door. It usually starts small. Maybe she suggests splitting expenses in a way that benefits her. Maybe she nudges you into opening a joint account. Maybe she leans on you to cover bills just for now. None of it feels alarming in the beginning. In fact, it looks like normal relationship growth. But slowly, the balance shifts. You're paying more, you're responsible for more, and she's contributing less. Before long, she's got you carrying debt that benefits her. She's pushing for purchases that stretch your income, but keep her comfortable. She may even discourage you from pursuing opportunities that would increase your independence, because the more dependent you are, the harder it is to break free. The trap isn't only about numbers, it's psychological. You start thinking, if I leave, what happens to the bills, the lease, the debt, the lifestyle we've built? She knows this, and she uses it. Every financial tie becomes another chain. And the heavier those chains, the more you convince yourself that staying is easier than untangling the mess. This is why financial control is so powerful. It doesn't just drain your bank account, it drains your freedom. If money keeps you stuck, recovery sabotage keeps you broken. This happens the moment you start to wake up and take steps toward healing. Maybe you book a therapy session. Maybe you reconnect with friends who make you feel like yourself again. Maybe you finally decide to set boundaries. For a brief moment, you feel hope. You feel strength returning. And that's exactly when she steps in to tear it down. The sabotage doesn't always look obvious. She may not scream, "Don't go to therapy." Instead, she frames it as selfish. She tells you that working on yourself means abandoning her. She turns your self-care into proof that you no longer care about the relationship. And just like that, what should be a step forward feels like betrayal. If guilt doesn't stop you, chaos will. The night before your session, she picks a fight that drains you. The day you plan to see friends, she manufactures a crisis that demands your attention. It happens so often that you see the pattern. Every time you move toward healing, something mysteriously blocks the path. But those accidents are no accident at all. They are tactics. The cruelest part is how she disguises the sabotage as support. She says she agrees with therapy, then insists on picking the therapist who sides with her. She says she respects your boundaries, then crosses them again and again. She says she wants change, then undermines every attempt at progress. It's a performance, not a partnership. And until you see it for what it is, you'll stay locked in a cycle where every step forward is dragged 2 steps back. At the end of the day, the most dangerous women aren't the ones who scream or lash out. They're the ones who quietly dismantle you piece by piece. They turn your loyalty into chains, your empathy into weakness, and your love into a weapon against you. By the time you realize what's happening, you're no longer living as yourself. You're surviving inside someone else's storm. Here's the truth you must hold on to. You cannot rescue someone who refuses to face their own wounds. You cannot love a person into healing. The more you try, the more you'll lose. Real love doesn't demand your silence, your surrender, or your sanity. Real love creates peace. It strengthens your identity. It makes you more of who you are, not less. So trust your gut when something feels wrong. Guard your boundaries even when guilt is used against you. And never confuse intensity with intimacy or chaos with care. Because the right woman will never need to break you to feel whole. She'll build with you, not bleed you dry. If this message hits home, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you want more insights on protecting your mind, your heart, and your future, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. Because your freedom starts with awareness, and awareness starts right here. Thank you for watching. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest struggle you want us to break down next? Let's build a brotherhood of men who rise above confusion and reclaim their power. See you in the next video.